Now, on this show, we talk a lot about the triangle of dependence. I drill it into you because if you put together all the people who work for the state government, all the people who work for the federal government, all the people who get welfare, 50% of the country's main source of income is government, right? Government. Now, that means you don't rock the boat. You don't promise to do anything different because government, in this case, you start to see the Labor Party as the government. You don't want to change the government because if you change the government, you might affect more than half of people's financial status. But, interestingly, one of the economic places she wants to go is the cost of the welfare bill. I mentioned it before. The defence budget in Australia is about $50 billion. The welfare budget is almost $250 billion each and every year. Lee, at least, look, certainly, obviously, One Nation talks about this a lot, but the idea of it being the Leader of the Opposition and a conversation, especially after a bruising election encounter where cuts. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I was actually quite surprised, to be honest, because, as you say, approximately 50% of our voters actually rely on government funding to be their main income source. So the fact that you start having this conversation when they're shying away and trying to appease the voter and obtain the voter, and potentially she's at risk of losing 50% of the voters out there. But to be honest, she's right in the sense that we absolutely do need to look at this. If I understand correctly, about 40% of our budget
Correct.
is spent on welfare
right.
and social payments, right? So that leaves about 60% left for housing, for education, for health, for infrastructure, etc. So we're crying for more housing, we're crying for more medical, hospitals, education, etc. But you can't have both. So she's right in the sense of how do we reduce our government spending, whether it be social welfare or other payments, so that we can support cost of living and other infrastructure needs, etc. But you need to do it in a very smart way. You can't just strip payments because that you're leaving people with greater income crisis, obviously. So you have to be very careful about how you continue to support people, enable them to prosper and do it quite smartly. And I can, from my experience in working in government sectors before, there is an enormous amount of government waste, and that needs to be the area that we start to tackle in on first and foremost.
Yeah.